Taiji is the oldest whaling port in Japan, tucked into a little harbor facing the Pacific. For 1,000 years, from Japanese ports like this, whalers have gone out after the biggest catch of all. But the catches have grown smaller recently as pressure from environmentalists who fear for the whale's existence have led to smaller quotas worldwide. This year, Japanese whalers will be permitted to bring home fewer than 2,000 minke whales, the major commercial species. That's 1/10 as many as in the early 70s. And from 1986, the International Whaling Commission has ordered a 5-year ban on all commercial whaling. Only about 40 of Taiji's residents actually take to the seas now to hunt the whale, most often prowling the waters of the Antarctic until they sight their quarry. Although relatively few operate at sea like this, about 1,500 Japanese are employed by the whaling industry, and perhaps up to 40,000 are indirectly involved. Many question the wisdom of the whaling ban, arguing that scientific evidence does not support it, that some species are flourishing. They resent the fact that it was the non-whaling nations whose votes determined the outcome. The big whalers, Japan, the Soviet Union, Norway, and Peru, have hinted they might defy the ban. But in Japan's case, that could provoke retaliation by the USA, which strongly supports the conservation measure and has hinted at sanctions which could damage Japan's fishing industry if Japan does not comply. Meantime, the Japanese will continue to make the most of whale meat while they can, enjoying its faintly beef-like taste in little restaurants like this, which is in Tokyo and serves only whale meat, raw or barbecued. 300 customers a day eat some 14 tons of whale meat a year. $12 pays for a big dinner. The owner says he is optimistic that he'll stock up before the ban and hope for the best. But for those for whom whaling is a way of life, the moratorium could end 1,000 years of tradition. This is Don Dickson reporting from Tokyo. In Japan, the vigil continues at candy stores and confection counters to prevent a mysterious gang from placing poisoned goodies on the shelves. The gang, calling itself the Man with 21 Faces, hatched the bizarre plot to extort $400,000 from a giant confection firm, Morinaga and Company. But police are puzzled that the initial cash demands now appear secondary, and the gang's antics have taken on the appearance of a brazen cat-and-mouse challenge to police. So far, about 12 deadly sweets found by police have been labeled as poisonous, but the gang has threatened to begin putting unmarked packages on the counters. A similar scheme against another confection company earlier this year collapsed when the kidnapped owner of the firm escaped. Police still have not produced any suspects, although they believe a videotape recording made by a grocery store security camera may show one of the gang in the act of placing a poisoned sweet on the shelf, although it is not clear what, if anything, he actually has in his hand. The recording was released by police earlier this week. So far, no one has identified himself as the man in the picture, leaving police to suspect he may be one of the gang. Earlier, in a letter to a TV station accompanied by a bag of cyanide, the gang repeated its threats and boasted that there was a lot more poison where this came from. This is Don Dickson reporting from Tokyo. Police in Osaka are spearheading a gigantic manhunt for a mysterious extortion gang known as the Man with 21 Faces. Following 2 months of fruitless investigation, some 10,000 uniformed officers have begun a careful door-to-door search, and they are only the most visible of 40,000 police involved in the nationwide dragnet. They're looking for a gang which is demanding $400,000 from a huge confection company and has placed poisoned sweets on store shelves to enforce its demand. So far, police have found 18 goodies laced with a deadly dose of cyanide. But evidence is scanty, and police are circulating clues based partly on a store videotape which may show a suspect at work. They have also been canvassing businesses in the Osaka area which use cyanide, hoping to trace the origin of the gang's supply. Meantime, the target firm, Morinaga and Company, has seen its business slump dramatically. Its shares have hit a low for the year, and it's believed production will be cut by 90% in November. A similar plot against another firm earlier this year failed. The poison scare is now spreading beyond Japan. Authorities in 2 other Asian countries have checked for poison in products made locally by one of the 2 Japanese firms involved, but so far none has been found outside Japan. This is Don Dickson reporting from Tokyo. There is no obvious reason for it, but Japanese police have had their hands full so far this year with a record number of kidnappings, 16. Last year, there were only 26 during the entire year, and only 126 since the end of the Second World War. The most unusual case involved a wealthy businessman abducted from this house while taking a bath. He was held in a railway yard for 65 hours until he managed to escape. Police say his kidnappers were demanding 100 kilograms of gold and $1.25 million US. They're still at large. Katsuhisa Izaki was the first businessman ever kidnapped for ransom in Japan, and the case prompted one newspaper to comment that Japanese criminals were emulating Western-style crime techniques. Even more alarming for parents is the sharp rise in the number of children kidnapped, 6 this year. There were none last year. In most cases, the children have been returned safely to their parents, and police boast an 87% arrest record in kidnappings this year. Last year, it was 100%. But not all cases end happily. The 7-year-old son of a coffee shop operator was found strangled after he had been kidnapped while playing with his friends near his home. Police say the suspect admitted killing the boy after the youth began crying to go home before his mother got angry. These cases receive a good deal of publicity in Japan and perhaps even trigger copycat crimes. Recently, a 13-year-old and a 10-year-old were blamed for kidnapping a neighbor's 3-year-old and holding him for ransom. For the Japanese, it's a worrying new development. This is Don Dickson reporting from Tokyo. For some, eating noodles is difficult at best, but eating them with chopsticks is almost impossible. But not in Japan, where the noodle and the chopstick have grown up together. Some of the best practitioners of the art gathered recently in Hanamaki City, north of Tokyo, where they pushed hand-mouth coordination to its human limits. The object was to down the most bowls of noodles within 5 minutes. Not just any noodles, but a special buckwheat noodle known as wanko soba. Traditionally, it's eaten in a small cup, and a waitress replaces the noodles as fast as they're eaten, at least until the customer says enough. None of this group said enough, although several looked like they should have. They just kept piling it away. Although Japan has grown fond of Western foods, the Japanese have not lost their affection for the more traditional fare like wanko soba. Along with indigestion, this event was intended to promote that particular noodle and took place in the region best known for supplying the nation's countless noodle shops, although it seems unlikely any of these contestants will visit one in the near future. When the final tally was made, first place went to a man who downed 188 cups of the stuff. No one was sure whether this was a world record or not, but everyone agreed it was oodles of noodles. This is Don Dickson reporting from Tokyo. When the people of this little Japanese town say, let's get together for a few laughs, they mean it. That's exactly what they do, laugh. It's Oware-ko, or Laughing Festival. And each year in tiny Daido Bofu village, members of the 21 families who live there gather to laugh out the old harvest season and greet the coming one with a laugh as well. In a way, it's praying with a laugh, because the object is to encourage nature to provide a good harvest next time round. At the same time, it is a means of forgetting the current year's suffering and grief. It started in the year 1199, and at one time the laughter could be heard all over Japan. But now it's only here in Daido Bofu on the first Sunday in December. But he who laughs last laughs best. Well, sometimes. This is Don Dickson reporting from Tokyo.